This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 157 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Monty Roberts University. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and today we have David Wadman, who has built a better way to protect our horse's legs. That's good. And Monty's back from Australia to share with us how he helped a horse who's aggressive, and we were delighted that he shared a little poem he had written for us, too. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I have producer Jen with me as always. How are you, Jen?
Greetings. I am very well. Thank you very much. Every show, everybody doesn't get to hear this part, but every show, when we get our guests on, I go through this litany of rules, regulations, and guidelines for recording podcasts.
Yes.
And one of the things I invariably have to ask our guests is, what type of communication device are you using? Yeah. Most of the time, it's a cell phone.
Right. These days.
Often, people are using a hands-free or Bluetooth device.
That's true.
That's true. And I am so excited because our guest today is making use of Bluetooth to help horses. That was so cool.
Well, that's very cool. I'm glad you made a note of that, too, because I really feel like these horsemen who are coming out of the flyover states, I love you guys, but I don't think of, the mountain states or some of those places as a hotbed for technology. And darned if they didn't figure out the most efficient way to use technology to help our horses' legs. I love the idea.
This is great. Yeah.
And why didn't we think of something? It just takes somebody who really is noodling out a problem and said, how do I fix it? And then grabbing for technology. These days, this is really happening, like evolving daily, that we're figuring out how in our houses to make technology work better for us, even to build community with our friends and family. And I think, people are getting on the Skypes and the Zooms and all these different ways of seeing each other, FaceTimes, where they didn't want to before, really. Wasn't a phone good enough? But they're doing it. And I just, the ingenuity of people is just boggles my mind. It's really fun.
It's really cool. And then when Monty comes on to talk about how he helped this horse in Australia, it's almost the polar opposite in that it is completely and utterly low tech, 100% hello, common sense, practical thinking. And the two marry so well in this episode. I'm really excited to hear about it.
Yeah, it's all about relationship.
All about relationships. And we're going to get right to our first guest right after we hear from our title sponsor, Monty Roberts University.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm dedicated to training horses without pain. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. Western, English, the beginner, or the advanced rider. It doesn't matter. You can connect with other students online too, on our forum, and there's a new lesson every week. It's a lifetime of learning for you on my Equus Online University at montyroberts.com.
Utah inventor, competitive team roper David Wadman worried about tendon damage to his horse's legs, knowing that heat in the legs can cause tendon damage. So he developed a horse boot to reduce temperatures on horses' legs. His solution? A smartwatch for horses. Now CEO of Zebra Equine Technologies, David started in high school in the late 1990s to turn his love for horses into a profession by making the investment in several horses. Embedded in athletic boots, the Z Boot features a Bluetooth sensor that sends real-time leg temperatures readings to their mobile app. Horse owners now have assurance that they are not overheating and potentially harming a horse's leg. The boots also feature a layer of cooling cells and a patented new layer of impact protection, making it the smart boot on the market and only available at zebraet.com. Well, welcome, David Wadman of Zebra Equine Technologies. That's a fancy name for a horse product. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm really glad to have you. It was fascinating as we were talking off air first. You were just out in Forbes magazine. Now, that doesn't happen to too many ropers, does it?
It doesn't. We feel very honored, and we just so happen to spike onto the right people trying to cater their demographic that they're interested in the wild, wild west, apparently. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great because I love that horses actually make it into mainstream media too, and that people get to learn a little bit about horses. I think it's fascinating. Really, your product is fascinating, and that's why you got in there. But I think it's fascinating the story of how you came up with something that wasn't out there. And, it's hard these days to come up with new things under the sun. But maybe with horses, it's not so much because you found a conundrum, and I was hoping you would tell us a little bit about the conundrum, and I'm just curious about the whole process.
Yeah, the Z-Boot, which is the horse boot, that brand name that we're calling it, it's just full of conundrums. The first starting with the fact that us cowboys and cowgirls were just a bunch of traditionalists, and so trying to spike onto using technology in anything that is associated with that traditionalism is sort of sacrilege and not widely accepted in most cases. But what's interesting is when you go to a rodeo or most equine events, you'll see the competitor when they're waiting to go and compete, they have their legs swung up over the saddle horn and they're texting their friends or posting on social media using that very Bluetooth or the technology that they are, it is offsetting their traditionalism, I guess. So,
boy, isn't that the truth? Even just the long lining in the warm-up arenas, you just, I've never seen so many phones. It's like going to a high school. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I love, though, that you developed a business out of a need, and that's you didn't do it the other way around, which is clever. But we do have this problem of having to protect our horses and their legs, but just covering them up doesn't do any good for the heat in the legs. So I thought, first thing I wanted you to do is tell us a little bit about the problem with heat in horses' legs so that we know setting the scene for the problem.
Yeah, sure. And the thing about me developing the Z-Boot was I'm a client. I buy horse products. I buy tack, and I bought the traditional neoprene sports medicine boots because at that time, that's what I felt was protecting my horses the best. And I guess I need to put a disclaimer out there that I am not an equine health practitioner, a licensed one. But through our equine medical panel that we have developed with Zebra Equine Technologies and with just researching out how to protect my own horses, I have gained somewhat of a knowledge, which most horse owners should probably educate themselves on things like this, since it is such an important aspect. But to make a really long equine medical argument into just a short sort of a conversation.
Okay.
Basically, what I found with my competitive horses that I was competing on quite a bit through 2016 and 2017 was I saw their tendons swelling up and I didn't know what was happening. So I went to my veterinarian and he told me that there was something that was common in competitive horses, and he called it wind puffs, which come to find out there are fluid sacs around the tendon sheath that are filled with inflammatory hormones. But he said that the horses don't display any lameness associated with that. And so I just kind of let it go, but the swelling kept happening. And then in one of my horses, she did start to display lameness. And so I got to the bottom of it and saw that my competing on them, number one, was causing excess heat to be built up in their tendons. Sure. And just the basic anatomy of the horse, there's not a lot of blood flow that goes into those lower legs, and blood does act as sort of a coolant to pull heat out of an extremity like that. But what I found was what I went in search of was trying to find a product that would not harness that heat inside of the horse's leg. And as we all know, the most horse boots are made of insulative type of materials, neoprene, EVA foams, and even sheep skins, which are natural insulators. And so with putting those things around there, it just made the problem worse for my horses, and come to find out for hundreds and hundreds of other horse owners out there. And so we just went and saw that this was a big problem. There's been medical studies. In 1996, during the Atlanta, the Georgia Olympics that they had in 1996 in Atlanta, there was a panel of 50 veterinarians from all over the world that congregated there, and their sole purpose was to find what is happening during competition and associating it with horse boots, but what's the subjection to the tendons during competition. And basically what they concluded, and what multiple other studies concluded, is that even a bare-legged horse without any horse boot on there, that the internal temperature of the tendon reaches over 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And come to find out from the laboratory studies that they did, at 113 degrees, 80% of tendon cells, which are collagen cells, they die in a petri dish at 113 degrees. And so without having anything wrapped around the horse's leg, those temperatures are being reached because of what we're asking the horses to do, the weight of the rider, the weight of the tack. All of these things contribute to those higher temperatures. And that is something that came to me and opened me up to what was happening to my own horses. And then finding out that these horses are my business partners. They're my friends. They're an investment that I put a lot of money into, which most of us do, into our horses. And I wanted to protect that. And so it sent me on this mission trying to find something else, which I did not find. So.
You did not find, yeah. So you had to start patching something together yourself. What are some of the early iterations? What did you figure? Because you're not only trying to protect the leg, but now you're trying to actually cool it down, because we see that these temperatures without anything on the leg are too high. So you're actually going to go the other way?
Yeah, correct. So there's since we started out and until now we have our finalized product, there's been 51 versions or 51 prototypes that we have built with different cooling materials, with battery-powered cooling sorts of contraptions, different materials, and different exteriors, not using neoprene, perforating materials, all sorts of things, just to figure out what how to induce a lower temperature than what we were using in the same boots. But one thing that we did find, and this is where these additional conundrums come in, is that the horse leg puts off a lot of heat. And there's a lot of energy that is coming out of those lower tendons. And so trying to harness that energy while putting something around, wrapping it and encasing it is extremely difficult. But with using it's called phase change material, and it's a patented form of phase change material that is organized into cooling cells through the boot, and they're specifically placed around the tendon and into the places where a lot of that heat is amplified. But we just were able to focus that phase change material on there. And what phase change material does is it starts off as a solid. In our horse boot, it's more of like a hard gel, I guess is a good way to put it, kind of a gel. But it will start off as sort of a little more solid. But then as the horse starts working out, the phase change material is a heat extractor. It finds whatever heat source it can and pulls the heat from the horse's leg. And time after time, comparison to other boots, the Z boots, is because of that active material in there, it has an impact on what heat is subjected to the horse's tendon. But so now we found that equilibrium that is perfect for the horses with that phase change material, and not to mention the Bluetooth temperature sensor that can prove this to you. And
well, I think we should mention that.
Monitored.
Yeah, I think we should mention that, because I think you took it to another level, because of course people are going to say, how do I know what's going on in there? How do I know it's coming down? But you thought of that. You built in a Bluetooth temperature sensor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, at the very least, I mean, the main thing, we wanted to know what was happening to our horse's legs. It was really just guesswork, and going through and riding our horses, competing and letting this swelling happening. And then we see a change in our horse's legs, and we're like, oh, maybe I should do something about it. Mm-hmm. And it just made sense to get that technology involved. And now with this newfound knowledge that we were educated with, and now are educating our customers on. But with that Bluetooth temperature sensor in there, we can monitor this. If even the Z boot at a certain point, the phase change material will not be able to absorb. It can only absorb so much heat, and so if somebody is in a hot climate, they're really working their horses hard, and the horse is putting off a lot of heat through those tendons, it's going to, that phase change material is going to soak up as much as it can until it can't soak up any longer. And so when somebody knows that point has been reached through their smartphone with that real-time temperature readings that's put off by the boot in the Bluetooth temperature sensor, then that's where they will know that, hey, I need to recharge these boots, or I need to put some other boots on. Mm-hmm. It just takes the guesswork out of how to take care of our horses, and it gives the rider a little bit more power on that higher level of care.
Yeah. So you could actually, that's a great thought, that you could have two boots and you could be rotating these two, I suppose, as one heats up. Does it cool down pretty quickly?
Again, it depends on what ambient temperature it's subjected to. But one easy way, what we found is some of the professional cowboys that we've given some of the first pairs of boots that have come out, what they're normally used to is hanging the boots on their saddle, throwing their saddle in their horse trailer, and then driving down the road, going to the next rodeo. Yeah. But as we all know, the horse trailers are basically like a metal box, and so whatever the sun is hitting that thing, it's just making an oven inside of the horse trailer. What's nice about the Z boot, it actually has a mylar protective barrier that any outside influence from like the inside of a horse trailer or the sun directly pounding on the boot will not penetrate the phase change material, and the mylar barrier actually protects that phase change material, so it can focus completely on the horse's tendon. But if they have left their saddle in there for a couple of days and it's been 130 degrees inside of their trailer, they can actually take the Z boot out and dip it into water, and all of the circuitry in there for the Bluetooth is completely waterproof, but they can dip it down in there for about 3 minutes, and that heat leaves the cooling cells, and then they just wait for the boot to dry off or wring it out, whatever they want, and then they can slap it on there and it's completely recharged. So
that's fantastic. You're a smart guy. This is
thank you.
Amazing technology for not being, as you said, a technology major or anything, any deep training in veterinary medicine or anything like that, but you've got some great stuff. So why does Forbes pick up on it? Is it because somebody is lurking around the rodeo grounds and listening for new businesses, or how did he find out?
Well, I think so. We have feelers out there for just ways that we can get the name of the Z boot out there.
Good.
And they just were attracted to the entrepreneurial side of it. And to your point, I think when we have a passion, and when we want to, which horses are for me, and they're basically my life, which a lot of people associate with. But when that happens, and especially when you have such a high level of respect for these animals, because I think one way you can offend a horse owner mostly is if you call their horses their pets. Like that'll get you thrown out of the building by most people, but it's they're more than that. It's a companion, it's a business partner, and usually they cost a lot more than your dog or kitty cat out there. So it's definitely something that people who participate in that take very seriously. And so, but with that passion that I have, it had to be done. I had to find a way that I could help my horses out. They were helping me make a little bit of money down the rodeo trail. They were giving me their all, and I figured it was just the least that I could do to figure out a way that I could make it more comfortable for them and also to increase their longevity. Mm-hmm. But because of that path that it took me down, and just trying to educate people on how they can take better care of their horses and use technology to increase their capabilities as a horse owner, I think that's what Forbes was attracted to, and they saw that some of their demographic that they reach is interested in the horse stuff, even though they may not necessarily have horses themselves. So.
No, I agree with you. It does. We always tease that people think that everybody who has horses is pretty much broke. But I think there's a lot of people trying hard to make a living so they can keep horses out there too. So I love that you're supporting it in that, and you're supporting the health of horses like this too, and really seeing it from the horse's side. That I can't tell you how many trainers have said things over the years to us like, gosh, I worked so hard to fix a problem that I was creating all the time. And I think your story is exactly that, right? We sometimes don't look at the root of the problem and just stop it before it actually becomes a problem. And that's actually just education. And what I love is that you're sharing that with everybody out there too. You didn't just keep this, you didn't just lock these on down to your horse alone with some duct tape and go on down the road. You actually made it a business. Sure. Is it pretty exciting, feeling like you really invented something and made a difference in the industry?
Certainly, it's and you just hope that you can make an impact out there, because you do see those negative cases of people not quite reaching that level of care that their horse really deserves. But it's so refreshing now being out there and talking with like-minded people where they are looking to take better care of their horses, and they are even seeking the better ways to achieve that. But yeah, it's been such a great thing, and to just coincide with my passion and helping other people to see that. But it's definitely, I feel like I found my calling, so to speak, just being able to be around the animals that I love, and hopefully creating more products in the future that will increase their comfort levels as well while they take us down the road. So.
That's great. Well, David Wadman, we'll be watching you to help our horses have better lives too. I appreciate you, and I'd love to have you back the next time in go rounds, and good luck to you in your competition too. You deserve it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cavallo Horse and Rider offers a wide range of innovative products that provide comfort, protection, support, and value for you and your horse. Cavallo's easy-to-use, economical, and effective hoof boots are available in 3 styles and 6 sizes to fit your horse's hooves and your riding style. Cavallo's got your back, too, with their Total Comfort System saddle pads for English, Western, and Tucker saddles. Look for Cavallo's simple, sport, and trek hoof boots and saddle pads at your local tack store, or you can visit them online at cavallo-inc.com.
Named to Horse and Hounds magazine lists of 50 greatest horsemen of all time, Monty Roberts is the creator of the world-renowned and revolutionary equine training technique called join-up. Monty travels the world demonstrating that nonviolent, gentle training creates breakthrough performance as you partner with your horse. Monty grew up on a working horse farm as a first-hand witness to traditional, often violent methods of horse training and breaking the spirit with an abusive hand. That, he went on to win 11 World's Championships in the show ring. Today, Monty's goal is to share his message that violence is never the answer. Monty is credited with launching the first of its kind, Online University, an interactive online lesson site that is the definitive learning tool for violence-free training. Well, welcome. Welcome home, Dad. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm home. And I don't know whether I'll ever get to leave home the way these things are going with this travel situation, but I'm home, and California's getting long-needed rain.
It is
so
beautiful.
Everything is happy.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting happy, happy green. That's good. And we wanted to hear a little bit about your 2 months, not 1, but 2 months in Australia, which is an extended amount of time. I know that you've gone back to the Kennedy racing team and you're working with some different horses down there and baby horses and getting things going. So we wanted to hear a little bit about a really precious one that you were working with. It got you scratching your head a little bit. And I had people ask me about stall aggression. So I thought, well, maybe a perfect example would be not only your example, but also how you would help us with that if we had the same problem.
Sure. It's so poignant right at this moment in time because just returning from Australia, I can tell you the story quickly that last year in May, I started the babies of Kennedy Racing. That is to say, they were 19, 20, 22 months old kind of thing. And they took their first saddle and first rider. One of them was my second choice of 7 that he purchased, and a beautiful filly. My first choice was a colt, but this filly was to dream for. Beautiful filly. And I didn't know the pedigree that well, but her sire's name is Dissident. And that should have told me something, I guess. But he was a champion on the racetrack. And they said a very sensitive horse and had no record at all. The foals were running, but not well, you know. But I loved this filly, and I marked her very high in conformation. And I loved her in the round pen, too. And she was sensitive, very, very quick to move this way and that way when you made little gestures. And my top pole, training off pressure, was taken very seriously by her, and she would kick at you when the pole even touched her. It's the spongy pole that goes on their side, and they learn to move away from it. So I knew her to be a sensitive horse. And then I heard later that the reason these foals from Dissident weren't doing well was that in traditional training, they just wouldn't have it, and they wouldn't allow to be struck with a whip or anything, and they were very dangerous. So the filly went along doing okay. She had a little injury to a shin, and she had some time off, and when she came back, she was quite full of energy. And by the time I got there in January, the people in charge of the stable at Kennedy Racing said they couldn't even catch her in the stall, that she was very aggressive. And they go through the door and she would come at them. And I said, what? You know, and I know they don't hit horses. So what is going on here? And so I went to her stall, and she was at the back of the stall, standing parallel with the back wall. And I stepped through the door, and she sprung off that wall, and here she came with her teeth out, her ears flat back. And man, I jumped to the opening of the door, and she stuck her teeth right up against the wall and raked them on the wall, and then spun around. And I started to step back in when she spun around and headed away from me. And then I realized, oh my God. And I took a step back, and I saw 2 frogs of her hind feet right in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
And she kicked with both hind feet at me. And since I am who I am, I put a Honda in a long line and made a rope. No ropes there in Australia that you can use like that. But I tossed this line, and it went right around her head. And the instant it found her throat latch, she just said, "Oh, that's okay." And she came right to me. Now, that isn't uncommon. When you have control, then they will say that's okay. When you don't have control, and oftentimes horses are in stalls where they can put their heads out, and then people come by and crack them on the nose when they reach to bite them, or the person gives them a carrot or a cookie of some kind, lump of sugar or something, and the next one to come by without something to eat gets bitten.
Right.
So they become aggressive in the stall, and she had done that. Whether they did that or not, I don't know. And it wasn't the kind of stall where she could put her head out because they had the upper door closed. But anyway, she became very aggressive. For whatever reason, she became very aggressive. And so I showed them what I would do with her. And before I left there, which I had about 3 weeks more to work with her, she came to the door every single time to meet me, put her head in my lap and right at my chest, and I trusted her, and I could rub her all over the head, and she's in love with me. And now the girls can catch her, and I made them a pole so they don't have to throw the line. I made them a pole with hooks on it where they can put a loop over her head from 12 feet away. And then they have that control again. They haven't used it yet, and she hasn't gone wrong again. But in the meantime, I thought I would write her a little poem.
Okay. I think we should hear that. I would love to.
The owner decided to call her Rebellious Belle. And the owner thought that was a good name for a filly by dissident, which is somebody that marches on the street against something. And anyway, her name is Rebellious Belle. And so I wrote this poem for her. And it goes like this. My name is Rebellious Belle. Some say I'm a horse who is as mean as hell. I have in my veins the blood to fight. I will not allow force to tell me what's right. Some say I'm a beautiful flight animal, a picture of athletic grace. Request of me, without violence, and that will stay in place. Hit me or force me, and I will rebel. My name will tell you it's true. When I face violence, I'll fight back. My father made sure I'd prove it to you. I'm lucky to have an owner who tells it very straight. Use violence with my horse, and you'll get the gate. He's put together a team who loves us, you see? They work with my teammates, and they care for me. My body and legs will run so fast, I'm sure I could win a Group 1. Hit me, say I must, then the number of wins will be none. I'm happy with these humans who work with me now. They're kind and helpful, and they show me how. My father was great, but he put in us the right to fight. It's plain to see my brothers and sisters have come to agree. He's right. Most of them are with traditional trainers, whom they believe treat them bad. It would be great to have them come to me and see the fun I've had. I'll be a winner, and this is my lifelong dream. But I want the humans I've come to love to be there, because my win will be for the team. And I hope this goes to the team as a, beneficial thought that she's sensitive. We must treat her right. And there's some movements at this moment in time by the, officials at the racetrack that you can't use this equipment and you can't do this and you can't do that. And there's a thing in behavioral sciences called flooding. Mm-hmm. And apparently we had some people who struck her at the starting stalls, the only starting stalls that are available on the track there. Mm-hmm. And they struck her and caused her to look upon those starting stalls the way the people in Germany looked upon the tower where they were stuck in an elevator for 4 days and almost died. And psychiatrists and psychologists thought it would be good to flood them back and have them go in that elevator again and see that it's okay over and over again. Flooding, it's called. They went into the basements where a dozen people would be, there with a building on top of them, and they had to dig them out for 3, 4, 5 days and find 15 of them dead in this cellar. Flood them, take them back to the cellar, and tell them it's okay. That's what traditional horsemanship does with a lot of horses in the stall. They're flooded. And in the starting stalls of the racing, they're flooded. And they look upon that as the elevator or the basement. And when you go back to that same structure, I can take Rebellious Belle at this moment in time to any other stalls and turn her loose and she'll walk straight in and stand there. Mm-hmm. And I can even back her in from 20 feet away. But you take her to those stalls where she was abused. She said abused. It was just a crack on the backside or maybe around the legs. I don't know. But I saw a video of whipping as she left the gates. Mm-hmm. And she said, that will not be tolerated. But only at those gates. That's my tower. That's my elevator. And that's my basement.
It's a point of trauma for her. So how did you build up the trust, or did you even need to build up the trust when you took her to another environment? Obviously, in the stall, she was either frightened or aggressive.
Debbie, I believe that when I took her to the other stalls, she was just a horse. And if I was fair with her, my word, it's just unbelievable what I can do. I even put a hay net in the stall, in the starting stall. Okay, and she ate in there for half an hour, and then I went to get her and I walked her out under the hay net and she let it drag over her mane and down her backside and out. And then I thought, I wonder if I stand here, would she back in and push the hay net up with her backside and streak it along her back? Wow. And she did it. So there is no worry for her in the places where she wasn't abused. But now only training stall on the track. And I can't use the training stalls otherwise to go fast out. Mm-hmm. So we're having a real discussion about what to do next. Mm-hmm. I know what to do next. It's to go somewhere else, but I don't have that opportunity. So we're trying to work on that. But be careful. Use complete and utter caution when you're dealing with a horse that would be aggressive in the stable. Mm-hmm. Be very cautious and stay outside. Get help from a professional, but not one that would hurt the horse. That won't be the answer. If you are right with the horse, you can stop that down and stop the feeding from the hand. It's the second worst piece of horsemanship on earth. Now, what is the worst then? To hit them for pain is worse. Mm-hmm. So the combination of those two things, once you feed them by hand, then they will bite. Then you slap them in the nose, and there's the combination of violence and an inappropriate, what you believe to be a reward, which no horse has ever considered food as a reward. No blade of grass has ever run from a horse.
That's true. So, another thing that you talk about with stall aggression that might help some people too is that, speaking of food, when you go to feed them, sometimes they will get aggressive. And I've heard one of your fixes for that, and I like it, but you want to talk to that.
What was the fix? I don't remember.
You said, yeah, I'll tell you. You take the horse out of the stall, you feed the stall, and you put the horse
that's
back.
true. You never feed that kind of horse in the stall. You don't feed the horse in the stall.
Right.
You take the horse out of the stall and you feed the stall. Feed the stall. And then you bring the horse to the stall that's already fed. And they find the food in there and they don't attach that to the human. That's what you really need to do with that horse that would attack you when you bring the food to the stall.
Yeah, perfect fix. I love simple things like that too. Is there anything else? So now you've got these young ladies.
You remember that you've called me, Debbie, and it's only simple things. I only have a simple mind. I've never turned a computer on or off, and I'm more horse in the brain than I am human, I'm sure. And that's simple. Keep it simple.
Possibly. I think keeping it simple is always the best fix, but you're a deep thinker as far as observation goes, and you note what things work for a horse and what don't, or maybe you know it because you are a horse, so we'll put it either way. But are there, you took these two women and you've now put Rebellious Belle in their care, and when they go in the stall, you said they haven't had to use this loop, so she's coming to them. But talk a little bit about, so let's just say she happens to have her butt turned toward the door when they open the door. What's the first thing they should do?
Well, exactly. And they've mentioned that several times when she has her head in the corner with her tail faced toward the door, or when she's turned and facing directly away. And then you roll the door a little bit and close it again. And then you walk a couple of steps and come back and open the door again and close it again until she turns and looks toward the door, even if she's at the back side. Then you step in and your shoulders are on a 45-degree angle to your horse. Your eyes are watching the horse, but not directly on her eyes. You're not challenging her in any way. So if she would take a run at you and try to bite you, you see this out of the corner of your eye and you step out and protect yourself. If she walks over and is kind to you, rub, cajole, love her, clip onto the halter or put a halter on her, and then go about your work. But in this particular case, it's very strange that you put a saddle on this filly tied up in the stall. You can put a saddle on her, and when you go to girth it up, she'll try to bite you. Mm-hmm. And you would think, oh, the girth must hurt. Well, it's a soft girth, and it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't hurt any other horses. So I don't know. She's learned to bite. And I said, hang on a minute. Start to put that girth up again. And she would go to bite, and I school her with the dually halter. Mm-hmm. And I'd turn it loose and leave her there. Now girth it up again. And she'd start to bite, and I school her with the dually halter. Now girth it up again. Well, I learned that I asked them, when you girth up later and tighten it again, does she bite at you? No, it's just the first time. So now they put girth up twice. And they take it off and girth up again. And she's learning that girthing doesn't hurt her. But for some reason, she decided, and maybe somebody pinched her at some time with the first girthing. Mm-hmm. Horses never forget.
Yeah. Ulcers, do you eliminate ulcers from the possibility first before
Absolutely. And we have had her x-rayed for two reasons there, because they had a sand roll. And I saw this sand roll, and everybody was standing around loving the fact that they go in there and play and roll in the sand. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God. And they were licking the sand off of their feet. And we did tests on each horse. There's 10 in the barn, all of them full of sand.
Right.
That is disastrous. So they chained up the sand rolls, and we stopped that. So we x-rayed the ventral portion of the stomachs, and there it is. There's the sand, but we're getting it out of them now, and everything's back on track again. But they used too fine a sand, and they kept it moist so that it wouldn't be dusty, and so forth. We're checking to see that they're getting all the minerals they need, but they don't have to have a sand roll. I went over to the racetrack sand roll that they have for the horses that ship in, and I waited there until somebody put one bowel movement from a horse out there in the barrel, and then I collected it and checked it, full of sand.
That's the worst.
So everybody in Australia now has sand rolls. They love these sand rolls. Well, go ahead, folks. Your horses are full of sand.
Well, you can use a more spongy dirt base. I think those, like Mustangs out in the desert, they love to roll in those holes. But
there's things you can use, Debbie. There's things you can use. There's even things you can use that if they do eat it, it's digestible and goes through them.
True.
And that's what you have to do. You cannot put fine beach sand in there. First of all, it has salt in it, so they think that tastes good, and they take on too much sand.
Yeah.
And if you have one that's full of sand, he's more cranky in the stall, so you're apt to get one of yours. That's what this call is all about, is the aggressive horse in the stall, and you're apt to get that when you have a horse that has sand in the cecum.
So ask your vet how to get rid of that. That's Celia, I think, or you
check with your vet, and you can take any amount of fecal material from a horse and put it in a bucket and just run a hose in there and sort of spread it around. And when you get the bucket full of water, take the rake handle and stir it, and then put the hose back in there and just let all of the light particles will lift off the bottom and drain out the top. And when the water is clear, then you can pour it off, and you come right down and you watch down in the bucket, just like you would a pot of water in the stove with some rice in it or something. You can see it down there. And each of these horses had a tablespoon, at least a tablespoon of sand in the bottom of the bucket. We put them all in plastic bags and named them and so forth and so on, so the vet could work on it. But there wasn't one horse that had less than a tablespoon of sand coming through the cecum. Now, the cecum drops down. It's like the U in the pipes under your sink, and the sand falls in there, and you don't even get any sand out with the fecal material until that thing is full.
Yep.
So it's something that everybody ought to watch. And it makes cranky horses, and they will be angry in the stable because of the pain in their stomach.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So we've got a lot of stall aggression fixes for people, but a lot of it is just thinking through how we're creating those horses being aggressive, but also being fair with them to see what we can do to make their jobs easier. I even like the fact that you added slow girthing up. A lot of people do that way too quickly, especially with a young horse too, and get them really uncomfortable early.
Yeah, check your girth, both sides of it, because it might bite them somewhere and they just use your arm as a biting post. So check your girth to be sure that it's a good, clean match to the skin all the way around. And every time you girth up, do it lightly at first and then take it up later. Don't just whack it on as tight as it goes. And then also, if they do get cranky about it, school them for it, but then act upon it and girth up lightly, girth up more later, a couple of minutes later, and then more, maybe just before you get on, and then ride. And when you come back, undo the girth and girth up again, and undo the girth and up again, so that they see that this business of pulling it up isn't an invasion of their privacy.
Yeah, it doesn't always mean you're going to go out and work either. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks for all the tips. So we'll hopefully see some results from Rebellious Belle. When does she? I know they've got an upside down season from us, but when would she be ready for races?
Oh, she should be ready in the next month or so for racing, but I don't know if they have to train in those stalls. I'm worried about it, but they're doing a good job. Those girls are doing a fantastic job, and maybe they can get it done with those stalls. But I'm anxious, if it goes wrong again, to have some stalls somewhere else that we can go to where we can go fast out of them, because the more you ingrain these bits of behavior, the more difficult it is to overcome them.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for catching us up with a little bit. That's one story. I imagine there's one almost for every horse that's down there. So come back and tell us again, how the horses progress.
Yeah,
and
the next time you call about some problem like this, give me an hour and a half, and then we can get through the whole thing. But now I hope I've covered this subject well enough for you on the day, and we can do it in 20-minute segments.
Yeah, no, this is really great. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy with it. Thank you for coming on. Thanks, Dad.
Quite all right. Thank you and your team.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, I have a problem with a jumper. After his jump, he just goes absolutely mad, bucks, rears, and just freaks out. Now, I'm an experienced trainer, and unfortunately, I cannot find the solution. He has been checked by the veterinarian, and all is good. Please, I will appreciate the help. Just to let you know, I do train using Equus. Monty's answer. Thank you for your question. I am pleased to hear that apparently you have been using my techniques with your horses. This is a problem that I see globally. Horses tending to express energy after jumping, and jumping tends to bring this out more than most activities. The best results I have had come through an effort to calm this moment in time by doing a lot of low-level training. By that I mean trotting and cantering over poles on the ground or poles set at 2 feet to make it easy for the horse. When you begin to address this issue, please go through and study a good amount of lessons on causing the horse to learn to stand still. I believe you will find several lessons on the art of causing a horse to stand still on my online university. The main effort is to allow the horse to make a mistake and to move, but only 2 or 3 steps, and then back up with a firm request from the dually halter. This will be effective for you when on the ground simply teaching the horse to stand still. When you're in the saddle, learn to keep your hands down and relax. Expect your horse to stand still. Do not demand for him to stand still. Let him move 2 or 3 steps and then make him back up to the original position. Please let me know if this has been helpful to you, as I've had tremendous success with horses that have this remedial behavior.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to montyroberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page. Imagine if you could take Monty to the barn with you. Watch and learn as he addresses each challenge with your horse and answers your questions too. You head to the arena and you work on each new lesson, knowing Monty's there to encourage you, all with violence-free, tried and true methods. After all, he's been helping train horse lovers all his life. With his online university, you could be like Kathy, a retired teacher who just bought her first horse.
Recently, I went to a tack shop to look for a smaller halter. I'm 61, just purchased my 14 hands POA the day after my birthday, just a few weeks ago, after never having had a horse. And yes, that's crazy, but as a retired teacher who never had a hobby other than teaching, I decided to go for it. My hubby and I have taken lessons this past year, but I really longed for a relationship with a horse. The only other experience I'd ever had was to ride a horse in Philly, Pennsylvania, my hometown, when I was 16, and I got bucked off. And that was it until I was 61. Well, the owner of this tack shop, this precious lady, 84-year-old lady, gave me a copy of this magazine, Equine Monthly. And the article I read in it was Horses Are Biofeedback Beings, and it was just so interesting. I really felt like I just found a pot of gold when I read it, because in it talked about Monty's online university and that I could have access to 575 videos for $10 a month. And before that, I was just searching YouTube for everything I could find, but truthfully, that's just a pain. I love that the uni videos are concise and they're in order. They have extra notes and a quiz, and I just can't thank you enough for the huge blessing of your online university. It really has changed my life, and I will never be the same. I've had my horse Jack now for 7 weeks, and Thanks to the videos, I've done join up with him, and it really worked like a dream. I had to do it in an arena, but it still worked. Thanks to Monty's lessons and the cues and the hand signals, the ability to watch the lessons over and over on demand is incredible. So I also want to thank you so very much for making the online university affordable for this retired teacher. Thank you so much for all that you do for everyone who really wants to love a horse. Kathy.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged. For all information about all dates, see more at montyroberts.com or Monty's calendar by calling 805-688-6288. Ask for Adam and ask what's going on at Flag Is Up Farms.
Woohoo! And for details about today's show, it's episode 157. You can go to horsemanshipradio.com where you'll find links and photos and more information about today's topics and guests. And we love your feedback. It helps Debbie figure out who she wants to talk to next and what they want to talk about. So go to Facebook.
I love talking to you. Come on.
Go to Facebook. Type in there Monty Roberts. Like and follow. And if you're really modern, you can also follow Monty on Twitter or Instagram. His handle is, what is it, Debbie?
Monty_Roberts.
Thank you.
We got that. Yes, you'll love the Instagram. Do it. Go. Okay. And and you got to talk about that app.
That's right. We have an app. If you prefer to have a specific app for your horsemanship radio and other awesome horse podcasts, you can download it today from your app store for your Android or your iPhone. Just go into your app store and type in Horse Radio Network. It's a free app. Or if you're the global sort, you can also listen on your favorite podcatcher. Pick one, and we're most likely there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And many thanks to our sponsors, too. We've got Monty Roberts University, and we are so appreciative of so many people who have joined us in the last couple of months. It's been really exciting. Some great lessons coming up. And also Cavallo Horse and Rider, who have always been supportive of everything we do, and we love supporting them as well. So you do, too. Be sure to visit all the other great shows, too, on the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.com. Until next time, have many happy horse hours.